Hello everyone, I'm Brian. Today I'm reacting to Mental Health Epidemic. What's behind it? Acharya Prashant in Conversation 2022. So I think this is very important. It is something that I guess even in the West, and I think it's obviously probably started in the West, or I don't think it's not necessarily something that's just like the West all of a sudden created or was the first off. It's something that's eventually going to happen, and I think that comes with comfort probably because again, I go back to what Sadhguru said about how, if you're hungry, one problem. If you're not hungry, 99 problems. Why? Because um, you want to get your three essential things of survival out the way: food, water, and shelter. That's it. Once you get those three other things out the way, there's 99 problems. If any one of those are a problem, that's the only problem you have. Strangely enough, it's like one problem, yeah, it's the only problem. That problem, that's the only problem. These problems no longer exist. 99 other problems. But yeah, I think we are so focused on external stuff, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it becomes a problem when it obviously affects your mental health. And the fact that when you are just so focused on external that you don't realize how you are becoming, in a sense. A lot of people cannot exactly handle. Let's see. A lot of people don't exactly handle themselves very well. Um, I explain this a lot with Sadhguru because he gives a really good example, and the sheer fact of the example is the fact that you know when we are in these bodies, we don't understand how to control our bodies. We're so focused on external, how to do this, how to program a VCR, how to program that, how to be successful in life, how to be this, how to be that. It's all external stuff that we've never looked inside. And I think that's the biggest issue. The more and more external things I guess that we have, the more and more we look externally for things. So, for example, if there's only like one or two things, how to get a good example? If there's not so many external things in the world, we have time to reflect inside. But because there's so many external things now, we don't have time to reflect what's inside to see our emotions, how we handle situations and all that. It's so all focused outside that we don't deal with issues that we come throughout the entire day. So we have this mental health issue, in my opinion. Anyways, let's see what Prashant has to say about this.
Uh,
Real quick, again, amazing that it's happening. I mean, it's very interesting that it's happening across the world, but I shouldn't be surprised, honestly. At the same time, you know, I just want to understand how it's coming up. It says U.S. right there. I'm sure it's happening in India, China. Well, I don't know if China, but it seems like it's happening in India. It's happening all over the West. I don't know if it's happening in Japan and Korea because I've seen some videos over there. They have a whole bunch of different other issues other than probably mental health, but mental health very much seems to be in the West as far as I know so far. But I'm wondering if it's just the West or is there a contributing factor that regardless of where you're at, if you have this criteria, it's going to happen there anyway. Which I think that's the case.
Um,
Oh,
One of the
U.S.
things that really comes to mind, even in one's spiritual progress, right, where we see, I'm trying to relate it to a youth of today, where one of the we see sort of two things that come hand in hand here. Um, at least in my perspective, there's one where we are heavy on mental health these days, right? The importance of taking care of oneself, whether that be in a um, emotional well-being, whether that be in a spiritual sense. And on the other side, there's ambition. Youthfulness, I mean, means ambition in itself, the amount of energy, but at the same time, there's go get it, start your own business, start this new idea, take it and launch it, put all your mind, heart into it. When you're a sadhak, when you're a seeker, how does one balance detachment, vairagya, and ambition?
No, you must be detached to nonsense and you must be greatly ambitious towards that which matters. Simple.
I would have figured the way I've learned about detachment and being ambitious, the thing that stuck to me was be 100% in the process. I was actually I learned also in Buddhism back in my college, which got me into this a little bit. Is be 100 and give 110% of whatever you're doing, but expect nothing as the result. And that seems to be a lot of things. That's not only just in Buddhism, obviously, but in Hinduism as well. In Hinduism in general, which obviously is Buddhism, Advaita Vedanta, and all that. I believe. If I'm wrong, let me know, please. But yeah, it's to give it everything, do your best at it, and to expect nothing from it. And that is something I learned in Buddhism in my not Hindu class, sorry, my world religion class, which life is suffering, and expect nothing from whatever it is you're doing. Because obviously, in that class, they're saying Buddhism is ending of suffering. And those two things stuck out. The first one being life is suffering. And when you realize that, you tend to like, okay, if it's suffering, then I don't need to worry about it because it's just suffering anyway. There's nothing I can really do to end suffering. So by worrying about it, I'm just causing more suffering. And if it happens, I can accept it. It's not to say that you just give up on life. It's more along the lines is that you understand that that's the way it is. So I would have figured they would have said something, or at least the way I thought of it is the 110%. Give it your best shot, but expect nothing from the result. If it works out, that's fantastic. If it doesn't, well, then you expect nothing.
So in terms,
So you cannot have detachment from a thing without firstly seeing its uselessness, its futility. Otherwise, your detachment would just be an exercise in internal suppression. I do not yet know that this is not only useless but actually harmful. I do not know. But I want to be detached. I want to renounce it. How will I do that? I'll do that by putting a heavy load on my heart, and my heart will be yearning all the time. I'll become a thief unto myself. Maybe I'll consume this thing in my dreams then. No? So detachment and right ambition are just two names for deep insight and clear realization. Now I realize that the next thing in this mug is life-giving. I'll have it at any cost. Now this is ambition. The spiritual mind is a deeply ambitious mind. It's just that the desire is for the real thing. The saints were far more ambitious than the CEOs and the unicorns of today. They said we want nothing short of the ultimate. Just a $1 billion market cap tag won't satisfy us. That's too small a thing. We are shooting at something way higher than that. So that requires insight. That first of all requires that you know what is valuable and worthy in life. What is worth obtaining in the first place? Similarly, renunciation requires that you clearly know that a certain thing is toxic for you. And that's the moment when you just drop it. You can't help dropping it. Even if you want to tell yourself to continue holding it, it won't happen. You are asleep and a snake is crawling over your body and you do nothing. The moment you wake up, you can't help putting the snake aside. Or can you? Your hand has been benumbed in some way, using some drug, let's say. So you cannot feel anything. And there's hot burning coal in your palm. Slowly the sensation is now returning to your hand. You can't help throwing the coal away. That's renunciation. Are you getting it? To be ambitious is to realize true beauty in a way that it overpowers you. To be ambitious is to surrender to the truly lovely, beautiful thing and say, now what else is there to life than to pursue that one thing? Nothing but that one thing. And that's spirituality. To pursue nothing but that one, which is not really a thing.
Right. So ambition and surrender, in a sense, are very
They are exactly the same thing. Exactly the same thing. To be ambitious and to be surrendered are two sides of the same coin.
right. As a follow-up to that, especially, right, where we're talking about surrender, and we're talking about ambition being very similar in that. I'd love to understand even in your own life journey, even in your own spiritual journey, what was what was the biggest surrendering that you had to take? What was the biggest decision that you had to take where all marbles in, I'm going in? What was that for you?
See, again, this in some ways akin to the first question, but I'll be able to point at a few things. First of all, the surrendering is continuous. It is not as if one makes a decision to give up something at one point in time and that's it. That's your redemption or enlightenment. It does not happen that way. One has to continue giving up or rejecting the false at all times. Every 2 months, let's say, just to make it sound more practical. If I go back to my college days, well, maybe 90% of my batch is settled abroad. And it was just a few years back from today that I got my passport made. So if I go back to 99, when I passed out of IIT, there was one thing that everybody was into, writing the GRE or taking up a job involving overseas posting, and I don't think it mattered much. You see, real surrender involves giving up something that you know anyway to be valueless. So no surrender then can be really big. You are anyway giving up something small, so how can the surrender be called something big? So I knew it didn't mean much, and it was 12 years after passing out from IIM that I got my passport made, and that too for reasons relating to the mission. I had to visit Europe for a lecture tour. So that was one thing. Then there was the lure of the civil services and the Lal Batti, the government bungalow, the prestige, the power that comes with it, and all those things. And so that was given up. Again, not a very big thing, not something that involved a lot of pain. Yes, it involved a lot of examination, definitely. I didn't want to rush into resigning. So I took a good more than 2 years and a sabbatical before I finally put in my papers. But when I did, it was nothing very significant. It's not as if I remember that day or I become nostalgic and reminisce, nothing. Then the day when I quit my corporate job for good, that is, knowing fully well that I'm not going to return. And went into my own little apology of an office. It was actually a residential place, an apartment, a room of which I turned into my little office and started from there. Then there were moments when, as an entrepreneur, I would struggle, and somebody would come and say, you could have had so much power today. You would have been a bureaucrat of 8 years standing. And see, for every small thing, you are still struggling today. Why did you have to choose this? So, yeah. And what else? See, I have to remember, because it's not something that actively speaks to me. It's not something that I am particularly missing out on.
Right. I mean, if I were to interject there, I think it also has to do with the fact of what you were saying, or you kind of touched on, where for surrendering, when it becomes sort of natural,
It is natural.
second nature,
You become choiceless. You see, that seems like the only right thing to do. So then it's not really a big deal or a massive challenge. You could talk of a happy married householder's life. And there are youngsters who come to me, and the moment in the conversation the possibility of not marrying opens up, I often see the fear on their faces. You could say that's something I have surrendered. The prospects of being a householder, having a lovely, loyal, surrendered, sexy wife, and cute kids, and all that comes along with the, But it's hard for me to even call that as something I have surrendered. There's dirt on your body. You go and take a bath. You don't say you have surrendered the dirt. You have given up something that was never anyway worth carrying on with.
I'm struggling a little bit. I probably have to watch this again about trying to understand what he's trying to say here. Is it in a sense he's trying to say that things that are not you, or things that are irrelevant, are in a sense surrendered because they in some sense are not important? Kind of like how he said he turned in his paperworks, he gave up his corporate job, and then about, well, he says choiceless in terms of a family life. And is he referring to it all to, the Atman, where as in all these things are not you, so they are in some sense useless. You don't need them. Is that around the ballpark what he's trying to say here? I'm not sure. I'm getting that, but not 100% sure. Let me know.
You have not entered something that was anyway going to prove a disastrous trap. So how is this renunciation or surrender or tyag? It's not. But at the same time, when one starts off, there are times when one would miss all these things. There are times when there would be that inner ache. But one has to just let that last. One has to just let those moments pass. Those things come. We all are human beings, and we all are subject to inner and outer circumstances. So there are times when you even feel like regretting. But those moments should just be absorbed, and then those moments keep getting less and less frequent.
Mental health epidemic. What's behind it? Trying to, as I read the title and that last bit, is it more along the lines of things that also perhaps things that may have not gone your way, or things that you're not happy with, that you just absorb it and it'll be less frequent, as in perhaps the emotion that you get from those things become less and less because you've gotten accustomed to it? Is that what he's trying to say? I definitely gotta watch this again, but let me know just in case, because I might watch it again and still not quite understand him. Let me know, what is he trying to say here, especially when it's related to mental health epidemic. Usually when I get into this, that's what he's trying to answer, so I'm trying to understand it from that point of view. But also I keep my mind open to perhaps it could be just something a little bit more, but not usually not outside the realms of obviously the title of the video. So I'm trying to think of it along the lines of, okay, how is he trying to answer this in terms of the mental health epidemic? Then also thinking along the lines of, okay, how is he trying to answer this in terms of just problems in general? So because if you think of it too broadly, it's like, how does he answer these questions in terms of how to create a YouTube channel? Like it's useless to think about it that way, because it's, generally speaking, it's not what he's going for. So I try to narrow it down as much as possible so that you can understand it, and then broaden it to try to, maybe I'm missing it somewhere and maybe I can get it down narrowed to something else specific. But it seems like, at least towards the end, after reading that too, it's more along the lines of just kind of accepting the way things are by absorbing it. And then also, eventually, even as these things come up again, you get accustomed to it so it doesn't affect you as much. Is that what he's trying to get at? Let me know. I definitely got to watch this again, because I didn't quite get it the first time for sure. But again, please still answer, because even after watching it 10 times, I still might not quite get it on part. Anyways, that's my reaction to Mental Health Epidemic. If you like my content, please consider subscribing. Thumbs up, thumbs down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next vid.